Whether you like your coffee hot, cold, dark, or not at all, this is going to be the show for you. Conversations over coffee.
It don't matter where you are in your life. You don't have to do it by yourself. It don't matter what you need. Colin can help.
Hi, I'm Charlie Eisenstadt. I'm the owner of Pour Cleveland, a coffee shop right in downtown Cleveland, Ohio. Been open for over 5 years now, and I've been at this for probably close to 7 years now.
Gotcha. And if you don't mind me asking, how old are you now?
I am 34 years old, going to be 35 in May.
So under 40 and already just taking over the Cleveland scene. It's quite impressive.
Trying, yeah.
You said that a lot of Chicago influences are in here. Are there any other regional influences that you incorporate? I know that you're a global coffee connoisseur, but are there any culture other than Cleveland that you like or want to incorporate here?
No, I mean, I like the kind of the Midwest, which Chicago is also Midwest, but kind of like the hometown, small market that Cleveland is. I like that aspect of hospitality. I'm a big believer in kind of going above and beyond for service. So like everyone everyone that comes in here, I want them to have a great experience. I don't want, because what we do is a little bit different than most coffee that's out there. We're really conscious of kind of the intimidation factor that this style of coffee can have, and especially like the different places that we're getting coffee from, like roasters from all over the world, and the potential for confusion. So we make sure that everyone that works here is very like knowledgeable and able to communicate that without being like off-putting, so to speak.
In our experiences, everybody that we've dealt with has been not only the worry that you get with like that specialty shop is that everybody's gonna be snobby. Like you walk in, you're like, you're looking at it, you're like, I have no idea what I want. And everybody that we talked to has been very not only encouraging but knowledgeable. So
that's our goal. Like that was really like we were conscious of that in our business plan. And that's unfortunately the experience that most people get in specialty coffee, and got that. I've had that in town here. I've had that in Chicago, Washington D.C., where I studied for a year. There's good coffee there too, but there's definitely like a divide in terms of how much the customer knows versus how much you know.
Right.
And it's about like bridging that without kind of being condescending. And
you don't want me to come off as I know everything. This
no,
is why.
and you don't. Like that's why I love coffee too, is because you. I mean, what this store is today is nothing like. I mean, it's a little bit, but it's very different than when we opened. And it allows you to constantly evolve and get better.
Right. You kind of use your own creativity and your own personality and your offers too, don't you? Kind of sample through and use the style that you like. So yeah,
basically what this has turned into is kind of just like a business version of like a hobby, really, which you read a lot about people saying don't do that, which maybe they're right, but it's this is kind of what I got into coffee seriously in Washington D.C. I used to like just going to coffee shops like Starbucks up the street. When I was at Marshall, I would study there. Just found the law library to be like the most depressing place on earth.
I can understand.
Mostly because I didn't like the subject matter, but I liked kind of the atmosphere of a coffee shop before anything else. And in Washington D.C., I had a neighborhood shop that was right by my apartment that I was living in at the time. Got to know the baristas fairly well there. They eventually, on a weekend, I had more time. They made me a pour over, which I didn't know what that was, and it blew my mind. They wouldn't let me add my normal like cream and Splenda or whatever I was adding to it. I told them I know I'm not going to like it, and they're like, oh, you have to try it without. And I was convinced I wouldn't like it, and we do that here. Like people don't know what to order. Like just try this coffee as is. This is what it tastes like. And most times they're like a little hesitant, but you know, you try a really good black coffee and it's well prepared. It doesn't really need any sweetener or cream. So that's really the goal with like all the coffees here. But I got into coffee that way from that one cup, and just started ordering coffee from different roasters all over the country, and learned a lot of coffee from Twitter. I started following every coffee person I could. Got into like a special like preview subscription for this cool roaster out in Los Angeles. So I felt like kind of an insider, even though I didn't know anybody.
Right.
Learned a lot that way, just brewing coffee at home, the same style we make it in the store, pour over with a V60, and just kind of experimented a lot, and that's kind of what we do here. We get samples sent to us from all over the country / world, and brew it up and taste it, and if we like it, we put it on the menu. And
nice.
Yeah. Yeah, coffee, if it's done right, should be, in our mind, kind of the benchmarks are sweetness, acidity, which acidity has like kind of a negative connotation. People are like, oh, I don't like acidy coffee. Really, it's just perceived acidity. So a coffee that you taste a lot of like citrus and stuff that you might say is acidic, it's really just a flavor perception. It's not actually acidic. Like if you took like a pH reading of this coffee in Starbucks, they're gonna be almost the same. Like 98 to 99% of that cup is really just H2O.
Right.
So it's like a very small amount as a dissolved coffee bean. So it's not actually acidic, but kind of that perceived brightness that kind of like, you know, makes your like, you know, your taste buds tingle a little bit. That's like what we are looking for. Like that's what I think makes coffee exciting. I think most coffee is going to have some sort of like caramely, chocolatey kind of taste to it. If it's not under roasted. A lot of people hear light roast too, and they think under roasted, like kind of grassy tasting. We are looking for top tier coffee. So most of what we get in on a scale of 1 to 100, I would say is around 90, probably high 80s to low 90s, but it's super high grade. So if, and really like a lot of bitterness comes from preparation more than anything.
That's my next question.
Yeah, and if you taste, it's hard to explain a lot of this stuff, but like the more coffee you taste and try and brew, the more you learn. Which we do like an extensive training program with our employees to like learn how to taste defects in coffee and what you're tasting. Is it like something that you did brewing it, or is it something that is just inherent in the coffee that's just not good? So we're looking for kind of a balance of sweetness, exciting flavors like acidity, brightness, and just kind of something interesting, like whether it's the mouthfeel, is this kind of like effervescent, is it like kind of milky, smooth, but yeah, just something that is kind of a balance between like exciting and approachable is really what we're going for.
Gotcha.
Kind of not your ordinary coffee, for sure.
Right, yeah, and for the home user, the one that can't come out to pour every morning like they really want to, if drip method, is that the right, is that what we're doing here? So
we do both. We do pour over, which is just like a hand drip coffee. It's just basically like what Mr. Coffee machine does, but you're doing it by hand with a kettle. We have kettles here that are designed for pour over, so you're kind of having like a more delicate stream of water into the coffee, so you're not agitating the coffee grounds too much, which can cause like bitterness that you're not looking for. But really, the dark secret of coffee that I feel like a lot of coffee professionals just won't come out and tell you is if you start with good coffee, you'll be more likely to get good coffee. If you start with bad coffee, no matter how you brew it, it's not going to make it better.
Are you talking about what by good coffee? You mean the beans themselves?
Yeah,
or?
The beans themselves. So every point of the process from the time the coffee's planted in the ground to when you're drinking it in your cup, there's not really potential for it to get better. It's just kind of diminishing returns at every point. So if hopefully the farmer is using good growing practices, and then once it's picked and harvested, hopefully they have good processing as far as like how they're cleaning the coffee fruit off the bean, storing it, if they use fermentation or not in the process of, because the coffee bean itself is just kind of a seed inside of a cherry, so they kind of have to get rid of the fruit off of it. So there's a lot of potential for the coffee to get messed up along the way. So if you're taking careful steps all through the process, and then when it's roasted, if you're roasting it to the right point to kind of optimize all those things we're looking for, sweetness, balance, acidity, then you're hopefully getting a good cup in the end. But if you start with a coffee that hasn't been treated well, it's not roasted well, it's a low quality bean to start with, if you even do like a perfect pour over, it's not going to make it better. Or you pull a perfect shot of espresso to exactly the specs that you want it,
Right.
it's not going to make it better. You're only going to get out whatever that you put in. So, and I feel like coffee, specialty coffee especially, is afraid to just tell you like, just buy good coffee and you're more likely to get good coffee. I would say the most important stuff when you're brewing at home, start with good coffee, good water. Water quality is super important. Like I said, 99% of your cup is going to be composed of the water that you use to brew it. So if you have water that tastes too chemically from whatever city you live in, whatever they add to the water, or definitely use filtered water. Here at Pour, we obviously are putting an emphasis on quality, and we want the coffees to be their absolute best. So we have invested in a reverse osmosis system that basically strips the water down to nothing, almost like distilled water, and then we blend back in filtered water, so it's free of like chlorine and fluoride taste, and just has some mineral content because you need that to brew good coffee. But definitely, at the very minimum, use a Brita filter or bottled water at home. Ice Mountain is great for making coffee. If you're
Shout
using
out to Ice Mountain. Not sponsored.
Not sponsored. It's a good test for your coffee is letting it cool, because you'll more of the good and more of the bad will come through. You can taste more. Your taste buds work better like when the coffee's more in the 170s. We brew it close to 200, so usually after 5-10 minutes, it's usually like in its like prime spot for like evaluation. But use good water and a good grinder.
I wanted to ask about the filter.
Yeah.
Like, is there a specific?
That's really all like a personal experience type thing.
Is there one material that's better than another, or?
It's kind of whatever you like personally. So we at Pour use a V60, which is hey Nick or Patrick, can you hand me a V60? I can show it better that way. So we use these to brew our single cups. The design is unique in that unlike a Melita or a lot of coffee brewers use kind of like a flat bottom at some point, either totally flat like a circle or it comes to a V with a flat bottom. This comes to a point, and then it also has a large opening here where like a cone filter fits through. So with that large hole at the bottom, the water just kind of wants to run through quicker. If you have like most other brewers will have like a flat bottom that's metal, and it'll have like a little puncture in the bottom where the water can slowly kind of drip through, or even like on a Mr. Coffee or something like that, it might have like 2 holes at the bottom. But this is kind of like wants to have water flow through it quicker.
Gotcha.
So what we do is it allows us to grind a lot finer, and the finer you grind, the more you're going to pull out of the coffee, good and bad. But if we're using again good coffee, you're pulling out hopefully good stuff. So you're getting a much more complex cup, and then the filters for these will absorb a lot of the oils and stuff that you get from a more steeped process of brewing. Like opposite of this would be like French press, where you kind of are filling a container full of ground coffee with hot water. You're letting it steep together, so the water is constantly in contact with the coffee beans. And then you're kind of draining, or not draining it, but you're kind of plunging out the grounds and pouring out kind of the water through a metal filter. The paper filter will absorb a lot more of the oils, so you're getting a much more clean, delicate cup. So you don't get a lot of like oils and stuff in this, as opposed to like a French press,
right,
which will have like kind of like a thicker, kind of oilier mouthfeel to it. We used to use, which we still from time to time will use Chemex, which is very similar in terms of brew method, like pouring style, but it's kind of a beautiful glass container. We kind of have some plants in them over there, but we used to use it for like brewing 2 cups at a time. You can brew larger volumes in it. If you have one at home, you can also use it as a wine decanter. But it's kind of got this hourglass shape, so the cone is very similar to this, fits in the top. It's got a special bonded paper. It's much thicker, so you'll get like the cleanest cup of coffee I think you can get really on a Chemex. Almost the same thing, but I just prefer the V60. You can fit right on your mug, or you can brew into a canister. I've brewed larger quantities in this and had great results too, but it kind of lets you just kind of dig into a coffee very quickly, very easily. I personally brew on a coffee brewer at home. I don't do a lot of pour overs anymore at home. I don't know if it's just a laziness thing or just being tired from having kids.
Office, you could have somebody else do it, right?
Yeah, I don't want to think about it at home, I guess, which I get. We used to only do pour overs at pour. Now we also have drip, which
is that something that the customers were asking for?
It was more of a speed of service concern for us. If we had like a rush of customers, we would kind of get backed up just because we can only do so many pour overs at a time.
Right.
Whereas we have like a reservoir of coffee that we kind of constantly keep fresh and brewed, and we can serve people quicker if they're just looking for a quick coffee. But and that's kind of how we set up our menu. We have usually one domestic roaster that we're working with, just because of cost-wise, it's far cheaper to get coffee in from the U.S. than some of our other roasters that we work with from outside the states. And then we usually throw something a little bit more approachable. Not always. All the coffees that we get in are really good, but usually it's more of a kind of chocolatey, more of those like true like coffee note type things you're looking for. Chocolate, caramel, nutty. So usually like a Brazil, a Colombia, something like that. Guatemalan right now is what we have, which is like very milk chocolatey. It's got a little like orange tangerine kind of finish to it that makes it kind of exciting and different, but very approachable coffee. We throw on Fetco, which is just a manufacturer of a brewer that we use, and so you can get a quick cup here, or you can get coffee from some of the best roasters around the world that we've made some really good partnerships with since we started serving international coffees. I think we started doing that in 2015, so we've been doing it almost 4 years now. And we've worked with award-winning roasters from Norway, Germany, Japan, so really exciting stuff that you can't get almost anywhere else in the States, or sometimes nowhere else in the States. Free coffee cuppings every Saturday that you can come in and try coffees and learn a little bit more about coffee and tasting coffee.
Is that at the same time every Saturday?
Yeah, every Saturday at noon.
Every Saturday at noon, Pour Cleveland coffee lessons.
Yeah. So yeah, just come in. So like we put sometimes what's on our menu. Sometimes it's from a roaster that'll send us stuff. We have some coffee that we just got from a roaster in Japan. So really unique opportunities, and it's free. So really cool way to learn more about coffee, meet people. It was actually a very important part of the business plan was education and a lot of it has been educating ourselves, really. Like my understanding of coffee today versus like when we first opened is completely different, and so thinking of ways to like communicate that better to people is really important. We've done some like homebrewing classes, but even that to me, as my understanding of coffee has evolved, has just changed. Like again, like I would rather you buy a really good coffee, have me grind it here in the store, whereas when we first opened I would have told you to like buy a pour over kit, and I can't really advocate that if I'm being honest with my customer. I think most people it's not really practical, and it's not always the best way to enjoy the coffee. It's definitely a way to like learn the most about coffee and really like dive into it cup by cup. But if you buy a good home brewer and good coffee and you grind it here on a good grinder, you're going to get almost better results than grinding it at home on a blade grinder or even a lower quality burr grinder. So you know, I can do like a home brewing class, but if I'm being honest, it might not be how I'd recommend you brew the coffee at home. I have a Bonavita brewer at home that I've fallen in love with. Again, not sponsored, but it's like about $100 on Amazon. It gets the water temperature to the right point where a lot of like Mr. Coffees and stuff will not get the water hot enough, which is important for extraction. And some of my favorite cups are on that at home. But I would encourage everybody, if you're at all interested in what we're doing, come downtown to Cleveland and come into Pour and try a mind-blowing cup of coffee. That's the feedback we've been getting a lot lately, is like, you just blew my mind with that coffee, and it happens a lot. If you aren't sure if you like coffee, come in here, try a cup of coffee, ask our baristas if you're not sure what to order. We can pair you up with the drink that I think you'll like the best. But come in with an open mind, and I think you'll leave a coffee lover.
It don't